Welcome back to our Tim Talks. I want to let you know that this talk here is going to be about trees, and the subject that's going to kind of go along with it or come in after is nature as healer. All right. Trees are an interesting subject. Now, I'm not going to sit here and talk about the biology of trees as much as the spiritual side of trees and the energetic essence of trees. I believe that trees hold space for the entire planet, for all living things. They live all across our planet. They grow up to 350, 400 feet tall. It's been said that before old growth trees were cut, some of the California redwoods made the 450-foot height. Can you imagine? Taller than many of the buildings in our big cities. I grew up surrounded by giant oak trees, living near the giant redwood forests, the giant cottonwoods on the creeks. I was surrounded where I grew up in the town of Sunnyvale, which, as I mentioned in the past, is now the Silicon Valley, and much of it has been destroyed. But there were literally zillions of fruit trees. And I can remember so much of my childhood playing in fruit orchards, particularly picking cherries and sitting up in the trees and picking cherries till I was drunk off them, literally almost falling out of the trees. And when I wasn't doing that, I was climbing up redwood trees as high as I could get, sometimes 200 feet tall. And I'm glad my mother and father didn't know. Of course, they probably wouldn't have cared anyway. And I had tree houses in oak trees, but I had one oak tree in particular where I grew up. It was a giant oak, probably 500 to 600 years old. It had seen the California Indians that lived in this area where I lived. It knew them. They probably picked acorns from it. I mean, what an awesome thought right there. That I had a tree house as a kid in a 500 to 600-year-old oak tree that the Ohlone Indian people that lived in the Bay Area actually picked the acorns from it and ate them and sustained their life. That is a thought. In that tree, I would sleep many, many, many nights, and that tree would hold me. And I had some really difficult times when I was a kid. There was a period where I was taken care of by some really bad people that did some really bad things to me, put a lot of fear into me, and my sanctuary was trees. Trees became healers to me. They took care of me. And animals would visit me when I was in the trees. I remember being visited by squirrels, all kinds of insects, particularly butterflies. Deer would come below and look up at me. I had raccoons and skunks and you name it. They all came and visited because I had a calmness about me when I was in the tree. So one of the things I want to say is, when you come around trees, any trees, but particularly older, more majestic trees, let yourself go into the tree. In shamanic terms, we often call this grokking. It's where you climb up a tree or you sit next to a tree and you eliminate the spatialness that is you and let yourself morph into the tree. And you do this, as you do this, you ask the tree internally if it's okay. The answer is almost always yes, because trees love to connect with human beings. It's something they look forward to, actually. I believe this as much as I believe in anything. So you go to a tree, you ask it internally if it's okay, you climb it, you sit next to it, and you let yourself move into the tree. Your energetic body move into the tree. This requires eliminating your ego as much as you can and being very passive. I find one of the most obvious, or should I say easiest ways to do it, is to practice the art of opening your heart. Envision your heart opening wide and just morphing into the tree and connecting, if you will, into the heart of the tree. And yes, trees don't have hearts like us, but they have hearts. They have a core that contains all that they are. Now, let me back up a little. So much of this work requires being okay with what we like to call, in the nature ways, the mystery. This is not science-based stuff here. There's no scientific proof. You can't go figure it all out and on a computer or in a laboratory and make sense of it. So you have to be willing to let your ego go and be comfortable with knowing that something can be, that something can work, but you cannot prove it. That's a leap you have to be able to make to do this work. And if you learn to do this, you'll soar with this work. You'll begin to connect with every single aspect of nature that you could ever imagine, every living thing in it, including rocks and water and clouds and so forth. So you got to be okay with the mystery. You don't have to explain everything to know that it's real. Just be with it. Now, the naysayer might say, how do you know it's real? Well, how do you know you're not making it up? Hey, my feeling is proof will show up and you'll know by doing the work. So you can say, prove me right or prove me wrong. I could say, prove me right or prove me wrong. And you just go do it. And you'll know. And if sometime you do something and it doesn't work, so what? You're learning. That's the art of living. What's the big deal? But you'll know when it's real. You'll know. You'll feel it throughout your body, throughout the essence of your being, your energetic body. So coming back around now to morphing into the tree. So allow yourself your heart to reach out and grab onto the tree. You've asked the tree if it's okay. You're going to grok it. You're going to become the tree. Sometimes it helps to close your eyes and let yourself go. And you go into the tree and start to travel up and down the tree. Go down the tree into the root system. Follow the roots down by envisioning. Follow the roots down. Meet up with other trees. Come back up the tree. Go up the tree all the way to the top and feel the sun hitting the tree. Feel what it's like to be the tree, enjoying the feel of the sun as the tree reaches up into the sky towards the sun and pulls the rays of the sun down into it and the earth to create that magical thing called photosynthesis, which science has proven. And ask the tree if you can experience how it feels as it looks out across the landscape. We have a tree here in our camp where we do this sometimes, and we look from the tree's point of view right at the giant mountain, Mount Shasta, 14,000 foot mountain, magnificent mountain here across from our land. And what I know when I do that is the tree is enjoying the view. Yes, they enjoy views. They like to look out across the forest at other trees. They like to dream about their day and their life in their own unique way. They like to look at mountains. They like to look at animals. They enjoy the feel of birds coming and living upon them. They enjoy when squirrels clean off their cones and open them up and plant new seeds in the ground to start new young babies that the elder tree can care for. They enjoy when some of the most sacred moments happen. I remember I was in a tree once when a golden eagle landed in it. And I felt the tree literally almost shake as it welcomed the eagle onto its branches. And I remember the eagle pooped, and the poop went to the bottom of the forest floor, and I realized that is some of the best compost, organic matter a tree could ever ask for is eagle poop. It's all connected. Everything that lives in a forest of trees is a forest, and yet at the same time, an individual being. I saw a saying recently taken kind of as a take from Star Wars, and it said, instead of saying, let the force be with you, it said, let the forced be with you. But in truth, the force is what the forced is. It's a force. It's an energetic living force of beings that have come together to create a home and life for countless living things. One individual old growth tree, one, can at any given time in its life be a home for over 100,000 living beings. Folks, 100,000 living beings. That's birds, that's insects, that's plants, that's living, that's animals like raccoons and skunks and squirrels and things like that. That's passing animals that come for momentary visits and ones that spend their entire life in the tree. That, when you talk about Mother Earth, that's an Earth Mother, a tree like that, an old growth tree. Trees have such an incredible ability to relate to their environment. The roots of trees go deep down into the earth and across the surface, just under the surface of the earth, and they meet up with other trees. And those trees meet up with other trees, and those with others, and on and on. You could literally go into an old growth forest, or even a new forest for that matter, and with the connection of the roots, you could be connected to other trees and other forests, literally hundreds of miles away. As long as the forest is continuous, the tree roots keep it all as one. And at the same time, the trees are reaching up into the sky, grabbing the sunlight, bringing it down, and turning that into life. Trees offer us everything we need to live: food, nuts, fruit, all kinds of food, wood to build everything we could ever imagine building, fiber for a rope, and so forth. Trees, there's just no part of a tree that isn't giving, that isn't a giving being. And again, that's kind of a lot of what we're talking about here. The trees are the ultimate givers. They're the ultimate beings of service. They're the ultimate beings that have the capability through action to show their love for the world they live in and the beings that live in it. One of the most traumatic things that can ever happen to a tree is to be cut down for no good reason. For no good reason. Years ago when I was 20, and I was on fire for protecting the earth, and this will be another subject we'll talk about down the road here, is protecting the earth. I did a lot of what I would call direct action work. Much of it, I couldn't even tell you what it was. I might be in trouble if I did. But there was a tree up in a forest in Oregon that I went, along with some other folks, to sit in it. We climbed it. I sat in the tree to keep the tractors and the loggers from cutting this old growth forest down. This was a tree that was easily 1,000 years old. It was a Douglas fir, and they generally live about the second longest living tree next to redwoods. I climbed the tree. I made a little platform. I sat in it for 10 days. And I remember I was 20 years old. I was still pretty innocent. I was threatened daily by the loggers. I was threatened by the tractor operators. I thought some days I was going to die, but I was not going to leave that tree. And as I sat in that tree, it gave me songs. It gave me endless connection and a very deep level that really in some ways solidified my relationship with nature, to always be one of a close personal nature. And the tree, the tree, I could feel its fear. I could feel its trepidation of the logging coming. And part of what I realized in that was that the tree itself was not so worried about its own life ending, but it was the elder of the forest, and it was concerned about leaving the younger trees and falling and killing so many. And that's something else I learned. Trees are elders when they're older, just like humans have elders. And just like certain mountains are the elder mountains. And forests need elder trees to learn to live. So I sat in this tree for 10 days. I became bonded with it beyond words, took the abuse of the loggers, and then I got scared. I got hungry. I got pretty weak. I climbed down. I sat in the woods on the side, and the next day they came, the loggers came, and they saw that I was gone. And you could hear them laughing, making fun of us. And again, folks, I'm not talking bad about loggers. Loggers are like anybody. Most loggers that I've met love trees, and their business is cutting trees down, and we all use trees. So this is not an indictment on loggers, but it was just this one situation I'm talking about. And as I came down, I was listening to all this, and then they cut the tree. And I could literally feel the pain that the tree felt, the fear that the tree felt in my body. I started to shake. I hit the ground. I cried endlessly. And when that tree fell, I felt like in some ways my life ended. And it took out hundreds of other trees. It was at least 250 feet tall. It hit the ground, it exploded into pieces, parts of it, and then they cut it up, piece by piece, until they could get it out of the woods. Now, the good news is on this is we were in this direct action. This tree got cut, but we held things up for so long that lawyers who were working on the other end of this experience to save the forest were able to do it. And the loggers were stopped after just a few miles of moving into the old growth forest. And that area is now an incredible wilderness area in the southern part of the state of Oregon. So it turned out good. Here's an interesting thing. For years, I didn't want to go back. I sang the songs the tree gave me, but I just didn't want to go back to that area. A number of years ago, I did go back, and I could literally, when I sat quietly and looked where the tree was, I could see it. It's like it made a presence in the open space of the sky and the woods. It made its own presence there. It was like, and it was still there, and I could still connect to it. And of course, it was still, parts of it were still doing what trees do so well. They never really die. They just changed. After it fell, what was left of it, what they didn't take, the branches and things became part of the earth. And so there was compost underneath me. There was the tree, mushrooms growing and things like that. So that was a very wonderful thing to see and to feel. And it kind of brought me full circle, which is another subject we want to talk about, living the full circle way. So trees literally hold space for humans. I remember a number of years ago, there was this giant oak tree in the town of Austin, Texas. And that tree, someone killed that tree just to be mean. The tree was beloved by the town and the people. And it had nothing to do with, politics and all that crud. Everybody loved trees. Trees are usually universally loved. It doesn't matter what your belief systems are in your daily life. We all love trees. So that tree, somebody killed it. They poisoned it. The town tried to save it. The company that made the poison tried to come in, and they donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to save it, which is a wonderful thing. And in the end, the tree died, and the town went into shock. The town went into mourning. So trees have this incredible ability to bring people together, to hold space for communities. If you travel through Europe and parts of Asia, but particularly Europe, there are old trees that have been there for 500, 600, 700 years, sometimes more, and they have their own history. They have witnessed the wars that happened and all the other experiences that happened in Europe. People love them, they know them, they talk about them by first name. So trees are one of those beings that are able to be there for humans wherever we live and hold space for us. They're very patient. What can we learn from trees? Hey, patience is one, right? You got to be patient to be a tree. Another one we can learn from trees is how to be beautiful within ourselves. How to, this is a huge one, is how to love who we are by doing something good that allows us to feel good about ourselves. See, I think one of the great turmoils human beings have is we carry a lot of pain, guilt, sadness, and fear, and so forth because of what we've done to nature. And spending time with old trees kind of allows us to feel good, particularly if we decide to protect them. Trees can communicate with each other through the energy of the air around them. They can do it. I don't know how it's done, but I know they do it. So to kind of wind this up, this little talk was just meant to be just a little inspirational, in that what I really want you to do is go out and be with trees. I want you to find trees that call to you. You'll feel it in your heart, and go spend time sitting with them, hanging out with them, talking with them. Take your troubles and go to them and ask them. You know, when I have a big decision to make in my life, I might counsel with different mentors. I might read a book, this kind of thing. And then you know what I do to wrap it all up? I go by a big tree I know, and I sit and I put it all out there, and then I wait for the feeling to come. And when it does, there I am. The answer comes, and then I go do it. So find trees that can be your friends that you can hang out with regularly. That's really, really important. Plant trees, nurture them. Find forests that call to you, and make a shelter there and be with them. Meet trees wherever you go. If you're out in the city in like San Francisco or something, and you see city trees with traffic driving by and people walking by, and watch how people just ignore them endlessly. Don't be one of those. Go put your arms on the tree. Go touch it. And that brings up another subject. We're so willing often to keep our hands off nature. We don't need to do that. Touch trees, hug trees, climb trees, all the parts of nature. Being personally involved, intimately involved, is so important. Engage your senses when you're working with trees. Smell them. Smell the different parts of them, from the needles to the leaves, if it's a leaf-bearing tree, to the bark, to the inner bark, to the roots and the ground below, the compost, the earth itself, the top of the tree, the middle of the tree, the lower part of the tree. Smell it. Open your eyes and look deeply into trees. Look at every little crack in the bark. Look at the shape of the branches and how they crisscross and reach up to the sky. Look for all the different shades of green that are in the tree. Let your eye look up and look down and look wide. Look into the shadows. Look really detailed close up. Even get a magnifying glass and look close up between the cracks in the bark. You'll be amazed at what you'll see. Let your eyes become kind of foggy for a moment and try to see the actual energy field of the tree by letting your eyes, sometimes if you kind of cross your eyes, it'll allow for that energy field to actually be seen by your eyes. And I said, get your nose involved. Touch it. Touch all the different parts of the tree, from the cracks in the bark to the roots to the leaves to the branches to the different parts of the branches. This requires patience. Being willing to do this, being willing to be patient, is a way of saying non-verbally that I love you to a tree, that I respect you to a tree, that I want to get to know you on your level, not just my human level. That opens up a door. That's part of the mystery. And when that door opens up, you slide into the forest and you wake up one day and you go, whoa, no longer am I a person observing a forest or a tree. I am the forest. I am the tree. And that is a moment in your life that will change you forever. So back again, get your senses involved. Smell, taste the tree. You know, unless it's a poisonous tree or something like that, which is very rare, get that tongue out and taste it. Listen to it. Put your ear right up next to it. Do you know there's some trees like cottonwoods that live along bodies of water? They suck up so much water so rapidly, you can literally put your ear to the tree and hear the water coming up between the bark and the solid part of the inner part of the tree, the cambium layer. You can hear the water running up and down the tree. You can literally hear insects in the tree chewing on it. That's how woodpeckers, like pileated woodpeckers, they'll put their ear to the tree and listen for ants and grubs inside, and then they'll peck through and get them. So all your senses involved. And then, of course, the most important maybe, but you got to put the groundwork in first. You open your heart, you involve your senses, and then your sixth sense, the part that expands out into the spiritual part of nature. The part, again, that the mystery, it's the mystery. You can't figure it out scientifically. But when you open yourself up to the spiritual side of nature, you'll start to move into what I call different levels of being. You'll kind of pass through areas. Imagine like different levels, like through a little fog, and you'll burst out into another layer, and into another layer. I mean, think about it, folks. Look out around you right now if you're sitting in nature and ask yourself, do you really think all that space around you is empty? Do you really think so? I don't think so. Remember, go back up. Go up into space and look down at our precious living Earth. And don't forget, that ball, that rock called the Earth, is a living being. It's a living being, and everything on it is. And I'm here to tell you that trees are one of the connectors that will take you deeply into every other aspect of the Earth. They will open you up to communicating with rocks, with other plants, with animals, with the sky, with clouds, with water, you name it. Trees are like that first thing to work with. So get out into the woods and spend time with trees. Again, patience, patience. Let your ego go and morph into the tree and just be there. It's not even about knowledge all the time. It's just about one of the great gifts you can give to yourself and the forest is the art of being. Just be with a tree. Just be in a forest. You don't have to do anything. Doing things is fine. Asking questions is fine. Learning things is fine. But there's times when you just be. And you know what happens sometimes when you just be? The trees, they decide to come into you. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be the other way around. They'll come into you. We have this incredible class in our school called the Scout class. And I remember one year we're out in the Eel River wilderness and I'm singing a song. And the trees literally started to lean down to listen because we spent all week working with them. And all the people in the class saw it. And everybody was in awe. And they wanted to know how and why this was happening. It happens all the time. We have a sweat lodge we have in our school. And when we sing, the trees lean down and listen to the music. They love it. They love it. So I could talk about this forever, but nothing will ever happen until you get out in the woods and spend time with trees. Make a sit, an area where you go every day or every week or every month, whatever works, and you go back time and time again. Because the other thing that I think can be really important is to intimately know a being. You have to keep going back to it. You have to see it in storms. You have to see it in heat. You have to see it when it's being eaten by a bird. You have to see it in all types of weather. You have to be with it at nighttime. You got to know it in all of the ways that it lives. And if you do this, folks, the trees will open you up to the incredibleness that nature is, and you will be able to continually go through what I would call these veils, these deeper levels of being, and more will become known to you through this experience. Why would anyone not want to do this? I can't imagine. I will say, as I've said before in some of my talks, the deeper you go, the more you're going to see not only all the good and feel, not only all the good and the wonderful parts about nature, but you're going to expand yourself out and you'll see more of the damage that human beings are doing. You'll learn more about it. And you'll have to be willing to hold space for that within yourself so that you don't give up and become non-effective. Because ultimately, people like you, people like me, we've got to fight for our earth. We've got to care for our earth. We have to be involved in protecting it. The earth needs us now. Human beings are needed. This is our time to make a difference at a time that is so critical in the history of humans and the planet. So keep that in mind and let trees inspire you. I'll sign off for now, and I really want to thank you very much for listening to my talk. I know sometimes I wander around a little bit. It's just the way it happens. I hope that's okay. I am completely honored that you would be interested in listening. And go spend time with trees. Ho!